Okay, this is part 2 of board saves. We're going to finish up with the sitting board save stuff. We're going to talk about butt checks, and we're going to give you a bunch of ideas for standing board saves that you can do. So check it out. Another situation that you're going to need some options for is when you wipe out and fall forward. Here are 3 options that I commonly see done. On the first one, basically what you're going to do is as you fall forward, you're going to muscle the board out in front of you and pull it around, lifting up your hand and getting back into a crab position here. Now, when you do transition from here to here, sometimes your front arm will go back and touch the wave surface, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're just going to go directly into standing up right here. Now, with the second method, you're still going to have both of your feet attached to the board at all times, but what you're going to be doing is going in the opposite direction, where you're looking up into the wave. So what you want to do is you want to start circling your board directly into the wave. And as you come around, you're going to bring the nose underneath you, and then you're going to spin around, and then eventually you'll come out the other side into a crab position here, and then you'll get right up, and then you'll keep going. Now, the big thing to remember with the second method is as you're spinning into the wave, you're really going to have to tuck that front leg in as it comes around. Tuck it there, switch around, and then keep coming around. A good way to practice these is to go out on the wave and do some hand-assisted 360s. I do them all choppy by sitting on my butt and putting all my weight on my hands. But you can also do them like Ian here from the Wave Club in Spain. He does them super stylish. Yeah, his are really nice. Now, those 2 methods I tend to use on the light, gentle type wipeouts. But when it comes to one of those much heavier wipeouts where you're literally sprawling on the wave, I tend to use a different kind of roll on that. So with the third one, once again, it's a much heavier wipeout that you're doing, and usually you wind up much more sprawled out in this type of position here. So what I do is, as I'm falling, I'm going to tuck my arm underneath me, and I'm going to start getting onto my side here. And as I'm spinning around, what I do is I take my tail foot here and I bring it from my tail and bring it to the nose of my board. So right now my feet are in a pretty good riding position right there. Now what I can do is start getting up, coming around, and then I'm good to get up this way. Now, the one thing to make clear here is that as I was coming around, where my feet started here, I lifted my tail foot, I brought it around, and now my tail foot lands on the nose. But I'm in a good riding position here, but my board is backwards at this point. Now, if my boards wind up backwards, it's not a problem for me, because all the boards that I order have symmetrical rockers. That basically means that the tail rocker is the same as the front rocker. So with this board, there really is no forwards or backwards. But with a lot of other boards, they do have fronts and backs. This is an Outlaw board here. This is the front, this is the back. On this, the front rocker of the board is a lot greater than the back. This is a lot flatter back here. So you will wind up with a board that's backwards. So in this case, when you wind up where the board's backwards, you're either going to need to go ahead and turn the board around with your feet when you're in a crab position, or whenever you're riding it, you can always do something like a shove it to get the board going in the other direction, or you could jump around doing a sex change, and that'll get the board back to where it should be for you. Butt checks are the advanced version of sitting board saves. Sometimes when you do a trick, you're just a little bit off on the landing, and you can actually bounce back up really quickly. These are basically sitting board saves, but you're skipping a whole bunch of steps. It's extremely quick, and wherever you fall on the wave, you're going to just pop back up quickly right in that spot. It's very fluid looking. Once you learn to do sitting board saves quickly, then you will have all the skills that you need to do quick butt checks. It's all about getting the board back underneath you quickly as you push back up over it. The other question that I get asked a lot is, what's the story with that kick that the pros do when they fall? The kick is basically a technique used to soften your fall when you hit the wave surface. It's not really a kick that you're doing, but more of a body crunch using one leg. Usually your tail foot does the kicking and your forward leg maintains the contact with the board. Now, by doing the kick, you're actually pulling your knee into your body this way, and at the same time, it's like a crunch. So what happens is your upper body is going to start going this way with that. But at the same time, your whole upper body is falling in this direction. So what it actually does is, as you do that crunch there and you're falling backwards, it's going to make the impact a little bit softer. Try this. It actually works. Now, the other two things that this kicking motion does is, one, as you're falling back and you kick upward, it makes your fall feel a whole lot more stable. But the other cool thing is that now that your leg is up in the air, you can pull it down and it's like a lever to pull you back up. This little motion this way will give you the momentum to come back up with that. Now there's an unwritten rule on the Flowrider that if you wipe out and wind up on the sides in the gutter, then you can just push yourself back in and continue your run. But if you wind up getting flushed out, either over the top or out in front of the nozzle, then your turn is over. The one big exception to this is ghost riders. If you get flushed out but your board winds up staying in the wave, then you can still hop back on it and continue your run. In fact, usually anyone watching is cheering you on and pressuring you to make that big jump, because everyone likes watching those big wipeouts. Now my son Ryan started doing this technique where if he wiped out and knew that he was going to be flushed over the top, then he would push his board back down into the transition of the wave to create a ghost rider and then hop back on. He never knew whether the board would stay in the transition or come back over the top again, so he would always move quickly before the board had any chance of coming back over the top. This is a fun little board save technique to do. Okay, so here's some basic board saves. With this one, you just reach back and grab your board with your hand and push it out in front of you and then hop back on. And in the second case, you can actually reach back with your leg and grab the board with your foot and push it in front of you and then just hop back on. On this one, Alex is reaching back and pulling the board out of the water with his hands. After he picks it up, he takes a few steps and hops back on. Here we see Jake getting on top of his board and riding it like a surfboard. He then pushes it out in front of him like a yo-yo and stands up on the surface and hops back up onto his board. And not to be outdone, Dominique pushes her board out in front of her like a yo-yo and does a forward roll, but the board comes back too quickly to hop back on it, so she switches to plan B, where she gets back up on it like popping up on a surfboard. Here's an advanced one where sometimes when you do a kickflip, you under-rotate it and wind up landing straight on top of the board. In this case, you can just reach down into the water and grab the board out and then hop back on it. And finally, I wanted to throw this one in also just to show you that you can actually make these saves into a trick. On this one, I grab my board, I go back up to the top of the wave, and I do a Miller flip back in. But I started over rotating on the revert and wind up crashing at the bottom. But it's all in good fun. Okay, here's some final thoughts to leave you with. When you're learning a new trick, board saves will speed up the process because you can do runs where you're only attempting that one trick. So you'll wipe out, you'll do a board save, wipe out again, do another board save, and just keep repeating the trick until eventually you get it. So now you can go out and push to improve your tricks a little bit more and attempt more new tricks, because now when you fall, most of the time you'll be able to get back up. And last, as your riding improves, you need to start replacing those wild wipeouts and turn them into controlled falls. You're going to start realizing earlier and earlier into a move that you're just not going to land it. So instead of wiping out where the board goes flying away from you, start to sit down onto your butt or your back where you still have control of your board. Just sit down. This is so important, so listen good. Your main objective when you fall, besides obviously not getting hurt, is to keep control of that board. Got that? Keep control of your board. Then you can just pop back up and keep riding. So if you're ever in doubt that you're not going to make it, just sit down, get control, then get back up. So that's it for board saves. Go learn this stuff and add it into your game. At My Wave, we have a saying that goes, if you ain't falling, then you ain't learning. So now go out there and fall and learn, because now you know how to get back up and just keep going. All right, we'll catch you on the next video.